and we want to welcome to the show overall winner of the Rolex 24. God, that sounds good, doesn't it? Ricky Taylor. Ricky, welcome to Speed City.
Hey, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate you coming back on. Congratulations. Fantastic win today.
Oh, thank you very much. Wow,
Ricky,
it still doesn't quite feel real.
we were working out which one of the team would not be now heavily drinking, and we worked out it would be you.
Which one would not be drinking? You'd be correct.
There you go. What a day, though, for the Taylor family, your dad, your brother winning in GTLM, and a fantastic finish that was nip and tuck. I mean, the stress must have been unreal.
Oh, it was the most intense 24 hours that I've ever experienced. And, yeah, like you said, for the family, it was just amazing. And we're so proud of Jordan and my dad and you know, everybody for that effort. And then on our team side, it was Philippe just doing a superhuman job at the end there. And those last hour and 30 minutes felt like an entire 24-hour just in itself, with the pressure from the Ganassi 01 and the Mazda as well, and the 48. It was a really difficult end of the race, but he did an amazing job.
Well, Ricky, I want to ask you, when I think of you guys, I think of just super talented winners, but I also think of all of you are really nice guys and smart. But I want to ask you about the decision you made to let Philippe take that stint, because that's such a big decision and such a, you know, I want to know what was going through your head.
Yeah, so there was a lot of discussion with about 3 hours to go, and the plan was to go Philippe for 4 stints and then me for 3 to finish. And then it looked like that's the way the race was going. It was just so intense. It was hot, and the track was in quite a difficult condition. With the winds were, you know, between 10 and 15 miles an hour, tailwind in the bus stop and tailwind in turn 3, and it just made for a handful. And so, you know, between the 4 drivers and the engineering department, we kind of came up with a couple of plans, and we actually had all 4 guys ready. And so Philippe did 3, and then I was going to do just 2, and then Philippe was going to hop back in for 3. But when I was on my second stint, they asked me if I just wanted to go to the end, and I said it's a long way to go. If Philippe is up for it, he was doing an amazing job, and I think any of the 4 we trusted, you know, wholeheartedly and put all of our faith in. But man, what we asked Philippe to do was a bit extra, and he did, you know, such an incredible job with all that pressure and to hop right in. Because another side of it is with the tricky conditions, Philippe was the freshest or the most up to date on, you know, what the car needed in those conditions, and otherwise it would have been easier to pop one of the other 2 in there that were fresher.
Well, that's a really incredible decision that you made, you know, that you guys all came up with, but that y'all did it without, you know, I'm going, or fighting or whatever. I know it's got to be a team effort in a win like this, so that's a big deal. But I want to ask you about the expectations going into the weekend. You know, Cadillac has just dominated the last few years in this. Talk about where you guys, you know, where your mindset was coming into the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the Roar was quite worrying for us. We did the qualifying race last weekend, and we didn't have a ton of pace. And coming into this weekend, our expectations weren't very high. You know, the Konica Minolta 10 Wayne Taylor racing car is always like, everybody looks to that car at Daytona, and so, you know, people were saying, you know, you can't count us out, but in our own heads, we were like, we're kind of an underdog. We don't know what kind of a shot we have against the Cadillacs with how much pace they showed, and, you know, just the numbers of them, and it's such a proven package. So we felt like we had an outside chance, but our play was just to survive and get there and see what we had at the end. And even at the start of the race, Rossi and I were on the timing stand, and kind of looking at each other and thinking, the pace looks quite similar to last weekend, and we're just gonna have to stick to our plan and see how it comes out. And then this morning rolled around, and our pace didn't seem to really change, and everybody else has kind of backed up to us a little bit, and the conditions changed. And I mean, I still don't think we were the outright fastest over a lap, but the team just executed so well, and all four drivers. I think to win the race these days, you can't have a weak link in the car, and our crew of guys and all the guys on the pit crew did just a flawless job.
Ricky, I got to ask, so anytime you put together a combination of drivers, you see certain things that in a certain scenario, I'm going to call this driver in and he's going to take it. What is your position? What is Rossi's position? What are your key skills that we know one of you are going to take and when the other one's going to take?
Yeah, that's a good question, because our engineer often refers to us as like he's the team's looking at it from a strategic standpoint, and we're just tools of his to use in certain scenarios. And when Jordan and I were together, those roles were very, very well defined, and he knew exactly when he could use Jordan and when he could use me, and what our strengths and weaknesses were. And you don't want four of the same guy, because that trait might not suit every situation. So this year it was quite unique in that it was a completely new driver lineup for the team. Besides, I guess I was the only one with previous experience with this team. But the three of us, Elio, Alex, and myself, had worked together quite extensively with this car, so we had some continuity there. And then Philippe, we knew we could just plug right in. But when you look at, Elio, anytime you need to make up ground, he's going to be putting in qualifying laps anytime. Rossi's just got a great sense of the big picture and strategy. Coming from IndyCar, those guys, the strategy is pretty critical, and between all the fuel saving that they do, he's always got a good head on his shoulders. And then Philippe is a fighter. I'd say, he was not going to lose the race today. He was going to give everything, and not to mention just extremely talented and fast in traffic. He's got a lot going for him for sure.
I've just had my good friend Logan Robinson calling in saying, what is the meal recovery plan after winning the 24 hours of Daytona? So there's a question for you.
Well, we're actually at dinner right now. We're having pizza. So
there you go.
Pizza, lots of calories. Yeah,
that's a tradition, isn't it?
Nice comfort food. Yeah, it is.
There
it
you
absolutely
go.
Is.
Are you across the road at Hooters, or where are you? Nate, listen, Ricky, I got a serious question for you. I got a serious question for you in terms of, you mentioned two very accomplished single-seater drivers there. And I know that the Daytona 24 hours has always brought in superstars. But when you've been around this sports car racing all your life, but when you get an Elio or an Alexander Rossi, and then, you get a Jimmy Johnson coming in, are there characteristics that they are single-handedly and very much used to working with one engineer on their own? I was listening to Jimmy Johnson saying that it was quite unique for him to work with a team. And I find that with Le Mans and everything else. But do you find it harder sometimes racing against a single-seater expert? Or are there characteristics that you think, okay, I'm gonna keep an eye on this guy because he's a sprint. You know what I mean? Are there different characteristics to a sports car aficionado and a single-seater aficionado?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big reasons why we kept the crew together with the 7 car is we all work together so well. Alex, Elio, and I, and to get 3 drivers, regardless of their background, to work together and compromise is almost sounds like an oxymoron to have a driver that compromises. And so the 3 of us, there's just no ego at all, and everybody wants to contribute and win as a team, because at the end of the day, 10 years from now, we're not going to know who did what in the race, but we all have watches. And Philippe is the same. He's got such an experience with teammates. But as you said, when you're on track and you see somebody like that, you kind of try to judge their experience level, and just because of their success in another discipline doesn't guarantee that it's going to fit sports car racing. I know that a sports car driver wouldn't translate necessarily to other disciplines and vice versa, but it is very interesting and it's a unique opportunity in sports car racing that you go to an event like the Rolex 24 and you get to measure yourself up against the Scott Dixons and the Kamui Kobayashis and sometimes the Alonsos and Rossis of the world, and it's such a fun experience, and to see them come to sort of your home turf and measure yourself. But yeah, it's always a cool experience, and
I guess
to get to work with them, you get to see all the little details and sort of what makes them special. Because working with Elio over the last 3 years and Rossi for 2.5, and with all the different drivers that you get to be in the same car with, it makes you better, and you can improve yourself and learn lots from all of them.
Hey, Ricky.
I was thinking of Magnussen going in this weekend and what his father's achieved having done Formula One. We made him a pretty handy sports car driver in the end.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to slow that guy down. He's just incredibly talented, and it showed this weekend. He was super. I mean, all of us expected him to be impressive, and he definitely lived up to it. And it's going to be fun to watch him throughout the year this year. I feel really bad for those guys. They did an amazing race for the first time out. They're back in the series, so I feel really bad for the way it ended for them. But yeah, it definitely took the pressure off those last 8 minutes a little bit.
Hey, Ricky, two things. One, I sent the Zoom link to your PR person because everybody who's a car guy, the Rolex Daytona watch is the coolest watch ever on the planet, and I was hoping you'd get on Zoom so you could hold it up and let us look at the watch, but I do.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. I know. I told her. I said, "Here's the phone number too, just in case." But
I got a picture of one or two.
Well, Ricky, speaking of Kevin Magnussen, I mean, this is such an incredible group of drivers from all these different disciplines. Do you ever, I mean, look, you're an incredible race driver. How many, like 20-something wins in IMSA and everything, but do you ever kind of get a little starstruck and want to go say hi to a driver maybe that you've watched or whatever?
Oh, absolutely. I think all drivers are fans first, and whether they admit it or not, I think everybody, or maybe some aren't, but I'm a big race fan, and definitely I had a little battle with him during the race and Dixon, and every time you're on track with them, it's like, oh man, he was in F1 last year. He was a 5-time IndyCar champion. So yeah, it's not something that a lot of drivers say. It's just another driver with a helmet on. We're all the same. I always ask who's in what car, and I wouldn't say I race them any different, but I do internalize it and think, how cool it is that we're all sharing the racetrack together.
Yeah, I would imagine it's pretty hard not to. I mean, because you're a pretty young guy, and I mean, some of these drivers have been around for a long time, and winning championship. I mean, Scott Dixon. Oh my gosh! I mean, that's got to be that everybody's got to look up to him too. But we have a young driver on the phone. Nick, are you still there? Because I want to bring Nick on and let him ask you a question to see if Nick's in the USF4 series, and we'd like to. It looks like Nick is away from keyboard. It looks like, but Ricky. I want you to tell everybody at the table, tell Alexander Rossi, first of all, I texted him, tried to get him come on. He ignored my text, so he ghosted me. But tell her, but I'm assuming this is just family.
There's pizza. You know how he is.
It's a Taylor-only party.
It's a Taylor-only party. That's right. And Nick, that actually is my last question for you. What about how did COVID affect everything this weekend? I mean, it looks like it was a pretty good job. I know there was one report of somebody testing after the race, but how was that? I mean, at the big fan crowds and everything.
Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky to get to do what we do, and under these circumstances, everybody at IMSA and Daytona National Speedway, they just did an amazing job to to let us.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, talented guy. We really appreciate you coming on and stepping away from your family for dinner. It's a big deal to us.
Be late ever again.
And really, we really appreciate it. And have a great rest of the night with your family.